It started as a simple question: what if there were a place where people could buy anything they wanted, free from government interference, where the only rules were made by the buyers and sellers themselves? Ross Ulbricht had that vision. He was just a 20 something with a physics degree, yet he was about to create something that would change the internet forever. In a hidden corner of the web, Ulbricht became Dread Pirate Roberts, a name that would soon strike fear and fascination alike. With a few clicks, he launched Silk Road, an underground marketplace built on anonymity, where Bitcoin was the currency and the law was powerless. Drugs, fake IDs, weapons, the darkest corners of human desire could now be fulfilled with a simple transaction, shielded by a veil of encryption on the Tor network. This was not just another website. It was an open invitation to test the limits of the law, to see just how far a single person could push the boundaries of freedom. But what began as a daring experiment would spiral into a dark and dangerous empire, one that law enforcement would soon be desperate to bring down. Welcome to Crime Pulse Stories, where we uncover the beginnings of Silk Road, the twisted ambitions behind it, and the man who dared to reshape the internet's underground. How do you hide a global criminal enterprise in plain sight? Ross Ulbricht had the answer, and it lay within two powerful technologies, the Tor network and Bitcoin. Together, they formed an invisible fortress, a digital shield strong enough to protect not only Silk Road's users, but also its creator from the prying eyes of law enforcement. The Tor network was Ulbricht's first line of defense. Every transaction, every message, every click was routed through layers of servers, bouncing around the globe until tracing its origin became nearly impossible. Even if authorities could somehow access Silk Road, they would only reach a dead end, a ghostly reflection of a marketplace, impossible to track back to a single user or location. And then there was Bitcoin. At the time, it was a mysterious new currency, a digital coin that no government controlled. It promised freedom from banks, but Ulbricht saw something else: a way to mask every transaction on Silk Road. With Bitcoin, buyers and sellers could trade without ever revealing their real identities, creating a marketplace as close to untraceable as the internet had ever seen. This combination wasn't just clever, it was revolutionary. Thousands of users flocked to Silk Road, lured by the promise of anonymity, by the thrill of accessing the forbidden. But as the site grew, so did the suspicion, and cracks began to form in the impenetrable walls Ross Ulbricht had built. What started as a whisper in the dark corners of the internet was now a full-blown empire. Silk Road wasn't just a marketplace. It was a community, a thriving, bustling hub of illegal trade where buyers and sellers mingled as if they were on any other e-commerce site. Only here, what you bought and sold could ruin lives. With each passing day, Silk Road grew bolder. The platform's design was sleek, familiar, deceptively simple. Vendors could list their goods with detailed descriptions, while buyers could leave reviews just like they would on any legitimate site. The feedback system created a strange sense of trust, a twisted version of quality control for illegal transactions. Buyers felt safe, vendors became loyal. Word spread like wildfire, and the Silk Road's doors opened wider and wider. Soon, it wasn't just small-time dealers and curious users logging in. Major players entered the scene, selling drugs by the kilo, offering counterfeit documents, and even delving into darker, more dangerous goods. Silk Road had become a one-stop shop for every forbidden vice. It was more than Ross Ulbricht had ever imagined, a sprawling criminal empire with no borders and no faces. But as Silk Road's reputation exploded, it drew attention from the type of people who would stop at nothing to tear it all down. He had crafted an empire in shadows, hidden behind a mask as elusive as the dark web itself. Dread Pirate Roberts was feared, respected, untouchable, a ghost to anyone who tried to follow him. But Ross Ulbricht, the man behind the mask, was only human, and in the intricate game of secrecy he played, it would take just a few slips to reveal him. For all his brilliance, Ulbricht couldn't fully detach himself from his creation. Investigators sniffing around Silk Road's digital trail found clues in the unlikeliest of places: a few forum posts here, an email address there. In the early days, he'd promoted Silk Road on online forums, back when he hadn't yet perfected the art of disappearing. Some of these posts, shockingly, were linked to his personal email, a detail that would be small for anyone else, but damning for a man trying to conceal his identity. And there was something more, something only someone like Ross could leave behind: his ideas, his philosophy on freedom, on self governance, on markets untouched by the state. His words, found in public posts and obscure corners of the internet, matched the vision that Silk Road was built upon, a vision that defined Dread Pirate Roberts. Each breadcrumb brought investigators closer, like threads unraveling the carefully crafted fabric of his identity. Silk Road had grown too big to ignore. The whispers about an underground marketplace where drugs, forged passports, and dangerous substances changed hands with the ease of online shopping had reached the ears of the authorities. But this wasn't just any crime. It was a new kind of criminal network hidden in the darkest corners of the internet, and it would take an entirely different playbook to crack it open. For the FBI, and IRS, Silk Road represented a bold challenge. Law enforcement agencies around the world were watching, wondering if the US could take down this shadowy empire. They pooled their resources, bringing in cyber experts who understood the Tor network's complexity and the mystery of Bitcoin transactions. Their mission: infiltrate the marketplace without revealing themselves, collect undeniable proof, and trace it all back to the elusive figure known as Dread Pirate Roberts. Agents went undercover, buying small quantities of drugs and counterfeit documents. Each transaction was another piece of evidence, another string in the web that they hoped would lead them to the heart of Silk Road. Slowly, they mapped out the network, identifying sellers, buyers, and the infrastructure that made it all possible. It was a race against time. Every day that Silk Road stayed active, it grew more dangerous and harder to trace. And for Ross Ulbricht, it was only a matter of time before the walls he'd so carefully constructed began to close in. Join us on Crime Pulse Stories as we step into the tense, high stakes pursuit of Silk Road, where one misstep could mean letting the digital empire slip away forever. It was a chase unlike any other, a digital manhunt through a world built on secrets and shadows. The Silk Road was designed to be untouchable, wrapped in layers of encryption and anonymity so thick that even the most skilled cyber detectives struggled to find a way in. But law enforcement was relentless, knowing that one overlooked detail, one slip, could crack this invisible fortress wide open. Investigators scrutinized every blockchain transaction, hoping to find a pattern in the flow of Bitcoin. They combed through online forums, monitoring for anything that might point them to the elusive Dread Pirate Roberts. Days and nights blurred together as they followed each virtual breadcrumb, tirelessly waiting for a mistake, an oversight that would lead them to the man behind it all. Then came the breakthrough they had been waiting for. A server linked to Silk Road surfaced in an unexpected place, Iceland. This single IP address, amidst a sea of encrypted traffic, was the thread they needed to pull. For the first time, they had a physical location, a potential crack in Ross Ulbricht's meticulously designed system. But the chase was far from over. Knowing that one misstep could alert him, investigators treaded carefully, balancing urgency with precision. They were closing in, but to capture Dread Pirate Roberts, they'd have to outsmart a man who had evaded them for years. It was an ordinary day in San Francisco, but inside a quiet library, the walls were closing in on Ross Ulbricht. Unaware that federal agents had him surrounded, Ulbricht sat with his laptop open, his fingers just inches away from the empire he'd built in the shadows. This was the moment investigators had meticulously planned for one wrong move, and the man known as Dread Pirate Roberts could slip away into the digital abyss. As Ulbricht logged into Silk Road, maintaining his presence as its all-powerful administrator, agents made their move. Swiftly and without warning, they closed in, grabbing his laptop before he could even think to shut it down. In that instant, years of his secretive work, his millions in Bitcoin transactions, his meticulously crafted digital empire were in the hands of the law. The laptop held everything: messages, transaction records, passwords, proof that Ross Ulbricht was indeed the mastermind behind Silk Road. The arrest was a triumph, a long awaited victory in the fight against cybercrime. Silk Road had fallen, and with it, the myth of Dread Pirate Roberts, the untouchable king of the dark web. But as agents sifted through the evidence, they realized the story was far from over. The secrets within that laptop would unveil a network more vast and intricate than they'd imagined, leaving them with new questions, new mysteries, and the lingering allure of a digital underworld that would never truly disappear. When Ross Ulbricht faced trial, the stakes were high not just for him, but for the future of cybercrime enforcement. Prosecutors leveled a barrage of charges against him: conspiracy to commit money laundering, computer hacking, and drug trafficking. Each charge painted him not as a misguided idealist, but as a dangerous criminal willing to go to any lengths to protect his empire. The most shocking revelation came when prosecutors presented evidence that Ulbricht had attempted to orchestrate multiple murders for hire to silence those who threatened Silk Road. Though these charges were not formally pursued, the implications were damning, casting Ulbricht in a chilling new light. In the courtroom, Ulbricht's defense tried to frame him as a scapegoat, arguing that Silk Road was a collaborative platform where he didn't hold absolute control. But the evidence was overwhelming. His seized laptop revealed a web of transactions, messages, and plans that only deepened the jury's conviction of his guilt. In the end, the verdict was inescapable. In 2015, Ulbricht was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a sentence that sent a clear message to the underground world of cybercriminals: no one was untouchable. The fall of Silk Road reverberated across the digital underground, shaking the very foundation of dark web marketplaces. With Silk Road's closure, law enforcement had proven that even the dark web wasn't immune to investigation and intervention. But the takedown also exposed vulnerabilities in these platforms, highlighting the fact that no amount of encryption or pseudonymity was infallible. Yet, Silk Road's end was only the beginning. The dark web adapted, evolving with successor sites that took Silk Road's place, each more sophisticated, each learning from its predecessor's weaknesses. These new marketplaces cropped up, many meeting the same fate as Silk Road, as law enforcement honed its techniques in the ongoing game of cat and mouse. However, the case ignited heated debates around privacy, freedom, and the limits of government control, leaving a legacy of questions that blurred the line between freedom and lawlessness. As the dust settled from Silk Road's takedown, another significant chapter unfolded: the handling of Ulbricht's digital fortune. Authorities had seized over 144,000 bitcoins from his accounts, a staggering sum that, at the time, was valued at roughly $34 million. dollars. This unprecedented seizure not only underscored the vast reach of Silk Road's operations, but also raised ethical and logistical questions about the government's role in managing and auctioning digital assets. The S. Marshals conducted a series of public auctions, selling the seized bitcoins over time and sparking public debate. Was this the best way to handle assets tied to crime? Could the government manage digital currency responsibly? The seized fortunes marked one of the largest in history, but the controversy over its disposal added yet another layer to Silk Road's complex legacy, a case that would continue to echo in the evolving world of cybercrime, where each new platform tested the boundaries of law and liberty. While Silk Road's takedown was a milestone in the fight against cybercrime, its story reached far beyond law enforcement and digital transactions. At the heart of it all was Ross Ulbricht, a young man who became a symbol of both digital freedom and cautionary excess. After his sentencing, Ulbricht's family and a devoted group of supporters launched a campaign for his release, arguing that a life sentence without parole was excessive for a non-violent offender. They saw him not as a hardened criminal, but as a man who, driven by ideals, had strayed too far down a dangerous path. This campaign gained momentum, with advocates questioning whether the punishment truly fit the crime. Was a life sentence meant for violent criminals fair for someone who operated in the virtual realm? This debate brought attention to the broader issue of justice in the digital age. The calls for leniency highlighted the complexities of rehabilitation and sparked conversations about how society should handle first time offenders who find themselves on the wrong side of the law in uncharted digital territory. Silk Road's rise and fall cast a long shadow on the world of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin, which Ulbricht used to facilitate transactions on Silk Road, had previously been an obscure digital currency known only in tech circles. But Silk Road gave Bitcoin a dark reputation, associating it with crime, secrecy, and the black market. In the public eye, Bitcoin became the currency of the underworld, tainted by its connection to the dark web's most notorious marketplace. This association posed serious obstacles for Bitcoin's mainstream adoption. Regulators and financial institutions were wary of the currency, hesitant to embrace something so closely linked with illegal activity. However, as years passed, a movement began to distance Bitcoin from its dark web origins. Advocates of cryptocurrency worked tirelessly to shift the narrative, emphasizing its legitimate uses and potential for revolutionizing finance. Bitcoin gradually found its way into the mainstream, gaining acceptance among businesses, investors, and even governments. Yet, the legacy of Silk Road remains intertwined with Bitcoin's history. Even as cryptocurrency grows in popularity, it carries the echoes of its early, shadowed days, a reminder of the complex relationship between innovation, freedom, and the uncharted territories of the digital world. Silk Road's downfall might have marked the end of one empire, but it was only the beginning for the world of dark web marketplaces. The platform's closure left a void, and almost immediately, new sites emerged to fill it. But these successors were not merely copies. They were hardened by Silk Road's vulnerabilities, evolving to become more elusive, secure, and difficult to dismantle. Platforms learned from Ross Ulbricht's mistakes. Enhanced security measures became the norm, with sites implementing more sophisticated encryption protocols, stricter vetting of users, and decentralized structures that made them harder to track and trace. Many of these marketplaces operated on multiple servers across different countries, further complicating any law enforcement attempts to shut them down. With each new platform, the underground digital economy became more adaptive and resilient, reinforcing the cat and mouse game between authorities and cybercriminals. The dark web marketplace had evolved, transformed into a sprawling network of interlinked markets, each operating with lessons gleaned from Silk Road's fate. But as these platforms grew in sophistication, so did the determination of those trying to dismantle them, creating a cycle of adaptation that continues to shape the dark web. Silk Road's very existence forced society to confront a profound ethical question. Where does one draw the line between promoting individual freedom and enabling criminal activity? Ulbricht's vision was rooted in libertarian ideals, a belief in a marketplace beyond government control, a place where privacy was sacrosanct and choices were left to individuals. Yet, this vision collided with the reality that freedom without limits could pave the way for a thriving criminal economy. This ethical dilemma cut to the heart of technology's role in society. The tools that protected privacy and individual freedoms could also shield dangerous transactions from the law. Should technology be harnessed for unregulated freedom, or should it bow to societal laws that protect order and safety? Silk Road posed this question boldly, forcing lawmakers, technologists, and the public to grapple with the consequences. The debate remains unresolved, simmering in discussions about encryption, privacy rights, and the extent of government surveillance in the digital age. The legacy of Silk Road lies not only in its notorious marketplace, but in the uncomfortable questions it left behind, questions that force a reevaluation of freedom, privacy, and security in a world increasingly shaped by technology. The rise and fall of Silk Road was more than just an American story. It was a wake up call to the entire world. The platform's reach spanned borders, linking buyers and sellers from every corner of the globe in a web of anonymous trade. This digital marketplace had no respect for international boundaries, a reality that left law enforcement agencies scrambling to catch up. Silk Road highlighted a fundamental truth. Cybercrime is borderless, and the internet offers no safe havens. In response, countries worldwide began tightening their cyber laws, realizing that isolated efforts would not be enough to tackle this new breed of crime. International agencies and governments ramped up collaboration, sharing resources, intelligence, and technology to track down digital criminals. The case marked the beginning of a new era in cyber law enforcement, where cooperation became the key to dismantling the dark web's vast underground economy. Silk Road's impact was profound, sparking a global movement that continues to shape the way nations confront cybercrime today. The dismantling of Silk Road set off a technological arms race between dark web operators and law enforcement agencies, a high stakes game where each side fought to stay one step ahead. Silk Road had relied on cutting edge encryption and anonymization, but the law's ability to eventually penetrate these defenses revealed a weakness that other dark web operators were quick to address. Advances in technology created a relentless cycle of escalation. Dark web platforms adapted by implementing even more complex security protocols, incorporating decentralized networks, and adopting advanced encryption algorithms to shield their operations. Blockchain analysis techniques became essential for law enforcement, allowing them to trace Bitcoin transactions and untangle the intricate networks that enabled illegal trade. But for every advancement in tracking and infiltration, new defenses emerged from the dark web tools to obscure blockchain activity, heightened anonymization measures, and layers of security designed to prevent the kind of mistakes that had brought down Silk Road. This arms race remains ongoing, with each side continually innovating to gain the upper hand, shaping a constantly evolving battlefield that reflects the fast pace and high stakes of the digital age. For many, Silk Road was more than just an anonymous marketplace. It was a gamble with life altering consequences. Vendors and users, once lured by the promise of quick profits and secrecy, soon faced the harsh reality of their choices. Authorities didn't just shut down Silk Road, they pursued its members relentlessly. Vendors found themselves under investigation, facing criminal charges that led to years behind bars. Users, too, encountered financial devastation and social stigma as their lives unraveled in the wake of public exposure. Each personal story from Silk Road is a reminder that the dark web's allure often comes with a hidden cost. These cautionary tales underscore the dangers of the digital underworld, a place where anonymity is fragile and consequences are real. The story of Silk Road has left an indelible mark on popular culture, inspiring countless books, documentaries, and films. Audiences around the world are drawn to the themes woven into its narrative: rebellion against the system, the potential of technology to reshape society, and the quest for individual freedom. Ross Ulbricht's journey, for all its controversy, resonates with the classic archetype of the lone revolutionary challenging authority. In a world that increasingly grapples with issues of privacy, surveillance, and digital rights, Silk Road's story feels like a reflection of broader societal struggles. The marketplace may be gone, but its tale continues to spark conversations about freedom and control in the internet age. The rise and fall of Silk Road offer lasting lessons that reach far beyond the confines of the dark web. For law enforcement, it was a wake up call about the evolving nature of cybercrime, pushing them to develop new tools and techniques to combat it. For cybersecurity experts, Silk Road underscored the necessity of constant vigilance and adaptability in a digital landscape that is always changing. But perhaps the most important lesson lies in the ethics of technology itself. Silk Road challenged society to confront difficult questions about privacy, morality, and the boundaries of freedom. In the end, it serves as a reminder that with innovation comes responsibility, a responsibility that, if ignored, can lead to devastating consequences. Even years after its shutdown, Silk Road's legacy refuses to fade. Legal battles continue as authorities work to recover assets and enforce sentences, while dark web marketplaces persist, rising and falling in an endless cycle. The impact of Silk Road has outlived the platform itself, evolving into a symbol of both the promise and peril of the internet. The story of Silk Road is far from over. Its memory lingers as a reminder of the constant tension between technology and law, freedom and control. Each new development in cybercrime, each new case of digital defiance, carries an echo of Silk Road's legacy, underscoring the ever present challenges at the intersection of technology, crime, and society. The tale of Silk Road is a complex narrative, a collision of ambition, innovation, and downfall. It reveals the transformative power of technology while underscoring timeless human themes of freedom, morality, and consequence. As we look back on the rise and fall of Silk Road, we are reminded of the delicate balance between progress and peril, a balance that, in our ever evolving digital world, we are all responsible for maintaining.